Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. And now, Tider Insider TV.
I can't say enough about the contribution that these guys have made. Just seems like yesterday we were in their houses recruiting them, and time goes by very quickly. But I can't tell you or them how much we appreciate the contribution that they made here.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome in to another edition of Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock, alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris, and tonight, back on the diet tonight, because I always like to say, listen to that sound. It really is nice, but let me tell you what, it's even sweeter when it's going down. Hey, I'm back on the New Year kick, off the sugar for a while. So you're going to see Diet Pepsi sitting out here every week. Pick up some great Pepsi products the next time you're at your local grocery store. Pepsi, a Southern original from Buffalo Rock. Well, Rodney, you heard Coach Saban talking last week about 5 juniors who declared for the National Football League draft. We'll get to them later in the program, but first, turnover on the roster and turnover on the coaching staff. Offensive coordinator Brian Dable is leaving the program to take the OC job with the Buffalo Bills. That's his home in Western New York. That means Coach Saban will have to fill both coordinator positions. We also know that Derek Ansley is gone, and other assistants may be on the way out as well. There could be more turnover. Rodney, your thoughts on the coaching turnover, and first, the one that everybody is focusing on right now, the offensive coordinator. Where do you think this position is headed?
Well, again, sometimes you think you have a read on it, and then you find out that you don't.
Mm-hmm.
You never can really predict. Nick Saban certainly interviews and does his, due diligence on all these matters. And, Gary, I think if you follow what the train of thought is right now, Mike Loxley, who is the co-offensive coordinator, has been the co-offensive coordinator this year. I think he would be the guy that maybe sounds the most logical at this point. I think he's getting the most play publicly, if you want to put it like that. Now, again, we don't know that for a fact he's going to be the guy, or we would say it. But I do think that he's certainly a legitimate candidate.
A lot of news coming out yesterday. You and I both knew that Hugh Freeze was in town to meet with Coach Saban on Monday. Unlike some, we didn't rush out there and say that it was to meet for the offensive coordinator position, because quite frankly, we don't know. I don't know that anyone knows. Yeah. They met. I do think a position was discussed. I believe probably more likely that he would come here as an analyst, but we don't know. If Hugh Freeze has a role on this staff with all that happened at Ole Miss, with all of the recruiting violations that were occurring while he was the head coach, then of course with him being dismissed because of university cell phone calls to an escort service, them having beat Alabama 2 years in a row, Ole Miss was a pretty hated rival. How do you think that would work out? How do you think Alabama fans would respond to Hugh Freeze joining the staff here at UA?
Well, again, you look at him from a football coaching perspective, Gary. I think Hugh Freeze is a fantastic
gifted
football
coach. Yeah.
There's no question about that. He's got a great offensive mind. I think he did a fabulous job coaching at Ole Miss. All the other stuff aside, if you could add a mind like that and you're comfortable with it, and maybe where he is now, which we really don't know. I mean, things happen sometimes, and whatever. Lane Kiffin, let's be honest, he had a shady background himself.
Yeah, and Mike Loxley has some issues, had some off-the-field issues when he was the head coach at New Mexico that have come up. So, people live their lives. People make mistakes. Sometimes they get second opportunities or new opportunities. Your gut feeling, I know, just do you think Hugh Freeze is on this staff in some capacity in 2018?
I think it's a great question. If I knew and felt really confident in saying something, I would. I really don't know. I would think maybe as an analyst, I know as you mentioned there was speculation as offensive coordinator. I don't think that's going to be the case. I could see more likely as an analyst.
Well, one coach who will fill a vacancy on the defensive staff is Pete Golding. Golding was hired from UT San Antonio prior to the Sugar Bowl, but his exact role is yet to be defined on defense. Now, he's the son of a coach. It's all he's ever done since he was finished as a player at Delta State. He's coached, and he's thrilled to join Nick Saban's staff in whatever capacity that he winds up filling.
I would say as a defensive football coach growing up and everything like that, my father was a football coach. When you talk about defense, you talk about Nick Saban, you talk about the University of Alabama. So we've always tried to, mock what they did and follow those guys and come study what they do and kind of emulate it where we were at. So it was obviously a dream come true.
He eats, breathes, and sleeps football. That's why Saban likes him. His hiring already official, as I said, he watched both Sugar Bowl preparations and national championship preparations. I said watched, didn't coach. Now, he is officially on the staff. There are reports that Jeff Banks from Texas A&M is going to join Alabama as a special team coordinator, although nothing official yet, I don't think, Rodney. But what are your thoughts on these two coaches, Golding and Banks?
Well, Pete Golding honestly did not know much about him. He was at UT San Antonio as a defensive coordinator and, just checking around, talking to people, Gary, and looking at what he's done. When you're talking about taking a defense from 101 in the country to a top 5 defense in 2 years, he's doing something right.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they had some players, and also had a great coach with Bo Davis there this past year, by the way, the defensive line
Absolutely.
coach, former Alabama defensive line coach. So, they had a very good staff. But I think Pete Golding's he's considered one of the up-and-coming outstanding defensive coaches. And you mentioned Jeff Banks. I mean, when you're talking about top-notch recruiters, he's a great recruiter on that formerly at that Texas A&M staff now, reported to be coming here. Really a tremendous special teams guy, kicker. Coach. So I really like Jeff Banks. When you're talking about trying to beef up your staff in terms of good coaches and great recruiters, Jeff Banks is a great step in the right direction because, Gary, he's got ties in Houston. He's got ties all over the state of Texas, out on the West Coast. He's already drawn attention from prospects, that he's recruited in the past. And, Christian Kirk, one of the top recruits in the country a few years ago, obviously a great player at Texas A&M. The moment he found out that Jeff Banks was being hired at Alabama, he said, this is scary. I mean, you're talking about the best in the business going to Alabama. You combine those two together, it's really scary. And
as we said earlier, there could be more movement. There could be some coaches on this staff right now who leave for other positions. So stay tuned. But for all the people that keep texting me and sending me emails all worried, Saban's done this before. 2015, they went to Georgia. They beat the Dogs in Athens 38-10. They just beat them last Monday night for the national championship. You know how many on-field coaches that were on that 2015 staff were on the 2017 staff that won the national championship?
I haven't counted
One.
One. Doesn't surprise me.
He's done this before, Coach Saban has. Just saying. He's won a lot of championships with a lot of different coaches. Well, still to come on Tider Insider Television, it's Alabama and Auburn on the hardwood tomorrow night in T-Town. We'll preview this big SEC matchup. But first, we continue to discuss the turnover in the football program. How will the Tide replace its early NFL departures? We'll discuss that next. And, of course, as always, coming up, your phone calls, emails, and tweets, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. That's the number. The email address, TITV@WVUA23.com. Brandon will be checking for those. Or you can tweet at us using that hashtag TITV. We're right back with a show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. The one, the only Tider Insider TV will return after this. Redshirt sophomore linebacker Mekhi Brown has left the Alabama program. He's transferred to Tennessee State. He's eligible to play immediately because that's a FCS school. He'll be remembered, of course, for this incident on the sideline. But this transfer, I do want to tell you, this was in place long before this incident. This was something that he had put in for a transfer back during the season. So give the kid credit for sticking it out and playing hard all year. Again, it was a bad moment, but you know what? We've all had bad moments. Good luck to Mekhi up in Nashville. And welcome back to Tider Insider TV. Mekhi Brown is gone, but more importantly, so are Ronnie Harrison, Mika Fitzpatrick, Deron Payne, Bo Scarborough, and Calvin Ridley. All great players. That's why they declared early for the NFL draft and will not return for their senior seasons. Here's what some of them had to say in a press conference last week.
This university meant so much to me with the tradition and the way how they do things here. It didn't mean a lot to me. And I think that they did a lot for my family. And I just want to say forever Roll Tide.
And being able to play for championships and being able to play like around greatness with guys like Bo and me and being able to be coached by Coach Saban and the other coaches on the coaching staff, that's just a blessing.
It was an honor and a blessing to be a part of this university. And, I'm forever grateful. And y'all gave me a whole lot of love, a lot of appreciation, a lot of blessings. And I just want to say thank you. God bless and Roll Tide.
All right, we wish them the best at the next level. Talking about Nick Saban dealing with coaching turnover, he's used to this too. In fact, it's part of the process. You come here, you do well, you got a chance to be a high NFL draft pick. He encourages you to move on. But for the short term for Alabama, you've got to replace these great players, Rodney.
That's why they recruit all these top classes. And, you know, it's going to be difficult replacing a lot of these guys. You lost a lot in the secondary. Minka, Ronnie Harrison, those two guys going early. You're also losing at cornerback Levi Wallace and Anthony Averett, who were seniors. So a lot to replace back there. But they've recruited some young guys. You're talking about Daniel Wright, Xavier McKinney. Deontay Thompson was really good at the end of the year. He started back there at the safety spot. So they have guys to work with. Gary Kareem McDonald's another young player that's versatile, could play star, could play safety, could play a lot of positions. They're recruiting some guys in this class that I think maybe could possibly come in and contribute. So a lot of guys you have to replace. Now, Gary, I'm telling you, Deron Payne up front.
That's a tough one to replace.
He's going to be very
good. Let me tell you, there's a lot of good football players. They don't grow 6'3", 308 with that kind of athleticism, that kind of football IQ, that kind of strength. They don't grow on trees. I'm with you. I think he may be the toughest of all because you've got an interior line of scrimmage players hard to find in this day and age. But you know what? There's a lot of talented players waiting to take their place. All right, Rodney, let's move on to hoops. Huge game tomorrow night. Alabama hosts Auburn, 6 p.m. at Coleman Coliseum. The Tide looking for its third straight win, while Auburn, how about this? They're going for their 15th straight. That 14-game winning streak, that's the longest in the country. A lot on the line when it's a Tide and Tigers, even more so this year because both these teams are good.
It means a lot. It's the Iron Bowl basketball, so we just got to come in and be ready to play against the top 20 team in the country.
The rivalry speaks for itself. And I didn't understand it when I first arrived here, but I did after that first loss at Auburn. And it's nothing that we're running away from. We know it's a big-time rivalry.
Rodney, here's the deal. Alabama has lost 6 games. They still have a chance to get in the NCAA tournament. Can't afford a home loss. They were swept last year by Auburn. This Auburn team, without Wiley and Purifoy, has surprised a lot of people, me included. 14-game winning streak. Alabama will be out without Dante Hall tomorrow night. Dante Hall's out, so they're shorthanded as well. But this is a game that Alabama not only can win bragging rights, at least until they go to Auburn to play, but they can have a quality win, an RPI win, a ranked team win. This is a huge game for Alabama.
About momentum.
Yeah, and momentum too. It's just a gigantic game.
Yeah, it really is. You know, like you said, after being swept last year. You know, my question to you about Auburn would be this, and again, you know, honestly, what has their schedule been? I mean, you're talking about they won 14 in a row.
Well, they're 4-0 in the SEC, and they just won in Starkville, which against Mississippi State. I'll tell you this, they're good. And if you're an Auburn fan, of course you'd rather have Austin Wiley in there. I think he might have been potentially the best player in the SEC. But what it does, they spread the floor. They shoot the three. They got 5 guys that can take you off the dribble. They're 2 big guys, alternate for each other. It's just a team that has a lot of chemistry. But I'm going to tell you this, at home with a big crowd, Alabama can win this game, and you're right. If Alabama wins this game, it's a huge momentum builder for the Tide. Huge game tomorrow night in hoops, Alabama and Auburn. Now remember, Alabama still has to go to Auburn. That's another reason it's so important to get this first one, Rodney. Then you're guaranteed a split with your arch rival. All right, coming up next, your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, there's the information on the screen. Go ahead and call in now so you can get in line to talk with us, because we'll be right back with your phone calls and more right here on the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the award-winning Tider Insider TV. Welcome back to Tider Insider Television alongside Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. Let's get right to our phone lines. The Daniel Moore New Life Art Hotline. I guarantee you Daniel Moore's already working on that too at a Devontae Smith throw, don't you think?
They're already figuring out names for the thing.
All right, first up tonight on the hotline is Stephen in Northport. Hey, Stephen, welcome into the program.
Hey, guys. Wonderful shirt y'all got on.
Thank you, sir.
I want to make a statement to the Alabama fans.
All right.
Let's get out and support our basketball teams. Coach Avery Johnson's done a wonderful job, and then Coach Curry has done a fantastic job.
Absolutely.
With the women's team. They are winning more games and looking good and competitive in every game. Okay, I got 2 questions. One, how bad is Dante Hall's injury? Second one is, what do you contribute to the ups and downs of our men's basketball team? I mean, one game we looked like unstoppable,
yeah.
And then defensive and offensive. Then we'll play a good defensive game and not do it offensive. Do you think it's the youth and maybe the chemistry of the team?
Yeah, I do, Stephen. Thank you. First on Dante Hall, it's a wrist injury. Initially, they said about 10 days. Coach Avery Johnson said today it's week to week. So they're just gauging it as they go. I don't think he'll play tomorrow night. As far as the ups and downs of the basketball team, I think you answered it yourself. I think it's youth, 5 freshmen that play a lot. A couple of them start. I do think they're trying to find chemistry in a play-in rotation. And this is one of the youngest teams in the country. And without Dante Hall in there, they're even younger. So, yeah, I just think that's the ups and downs of a young basketball team. The talent is there. They're still learning how to play at this level, in my opinion.
We talked about that very early on. You remember when we talked, everyone was really excited about the young players and said, hey, listen, you know, there's probably going to be a lot of ups and downs with a bunch of young players because it does, like you said, Gary, the inconsistencies of it that you see with young players certainly at times can take a toll.
And you're right, Stephen. One game they look great. Next game you're going, my, that was awful. And at Georgia, that was pretty bad. Against Texas, that was pretty bad. Against A&M, they look great. At Arizona in a loss, they look really good. Look good at LSU. Hopefully tomorrow night they'll look really good. That place should be rocking tomorrow night at Coleman Coliseum. All right, there's only one Plateau, and he's in Panorama. Welcome in, Plateau. What's up, man?
Hey, good evening, guys. 2 quick questions. Do you think it's possible with the 10th coach being added to the staff, with our needs in the secondary, that they may put an additional coach in the secondary, maybe one to work with corners and the other to safeties? And then my second question would be, with Tosh Lapoy not have been a coordinator before and Golding being new, what would be your best guess on who would handle the in-game defensive calls?
All right, Plateau. First of all, the secondary, I don't foresee that. Coach Saban hasn't done that. He works a lot with the corners in practice himself. I know Franchione had a corners coach and a safeties coach when he was here. Right now, my feeling is they'll stay with one secondary coach.
I mean, yeah, I think it's possible, certainly. I understand what you're saying, Plateau. I think there's been a lot of speculation about that. And, you know, again, until these guys get positioned, it's really difficult to speculate because people say, is Golding going to be the secondary coach? Well, we don't know. He can coach inside linebackers as well. You know, who's going to call the defense? We really don't know. Now, I'll say this. Usually, Nick Saban has somebody on his defensive staff that knows the system, that understands the system well enough to call it. Like you've had Jeremy Pruitt, Kirby Smart, those guys. So you look at it right now, and Tosh Lapoy's obviously been here a few years on the staff. But also, when you're talking about adding a secondary coach, maybe a guy that has that understanding of the defense, Doug Belk was here. You remember him. He's a guy to keep an eye out for, I think. He's now at West Virginia, former GA here at Alabama. He could be a guy that I think could be a legitimate candidate for that secondary spot.
And as far as the defensive coordinator, the guy that calling the defense, that's the defensive coordinator. It could be co-DCs, but only one guy will call the signals. Coach Saban is going to work all that out, Plateau. Okay, Paul and Weaver, stay with us. Stay on hold. We'll get to you. You're first up when we come back on the other side of this timeout. And welcome back to Tider Insider Television. Paul, we're going to go to you on the Daniel Moore New Life Hotline in just a moment. First, though, an email from Andrew wanting to know about the true freshmen. A bunch of them played, as you see there. Guys that didn't play or are eligible for redshirt, Rodney, the list as I have it is Terrell Shavers, Markel Benton, Fadarian Mathis, Kendall Randolph, Mac Jones, Kyrie McDonald, and a couple of these guys might have been blue shirt, gray shirt type players, Hunter Brannon and Joseph Bulvis, also Thomas Fletcher on that list. But I think those are the guys that didn't play this year.
Yeah, that sounds correct, Gary, off the top of my head.
A lot of them did. As you said, 18 of them did. Alabama plays as many freshmen as anybody in the country. All right, Paul, thanks for being patient. Let's go over to Weaver in East Alabama and talk with Paul. How are you?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Very well.
Tide.
Yes, sir.
Have y'all heard anything about Chip Long, the Notre Dame offensive coordinator?
Paul, we have. His name has been kicked around a little bit. That's all I'll say. From Birmingham, graduated the University of North Alabama, spent some time with Mike Norvell at Arizona State. And then when Norvell got the head job at Memphis, he was offensive coordinator there for a year. Been at Notre Dame. I thought did a really good job this year with that offense, taking them from where they were last year to this year. Young guy, innovative guy. Name has been mentioned. don't know if there's anything more than that.
Yeah, well, I think probably there's interest. Certainly there has been interest in both ways, I do think. But, you know, how far it went or how far it'll go, who really knows? But, yeah, his name's come up a lot. And I tell you, I think when you're talking about a young offensive coach, Gary, he's got some impressive credentials. I mean, you know, you mentioned his pedigree, and now he's up there at Notre Dame doing a great job for Brian Kelly. And I think, you know, you're going to continue to hear a lot about Chip Long.
All right, let's go to Haleyville. They got some snow on the ground and talk with Phil. Phil, what's going on, man?
Hey, guys. Hey, I appreciate you, first-time caller. But I would like to ask, who have we got in line to take the place of Deron Payne? Of course, I think we got Josh Frazier, but after him, who have we got?
Well, Josh is senior, I think, Phil. A guy, first of all, they're going to bring some guys in here young. Raekwon Davis has got a lot of versatility, Isaiah Buggs. I think a guy who might potentially, we've seen this before where guys kind of waited their time to watch, might be Johnny Dwight. You know, but it's going to take it may take several guys to kind of fill that role. As we said earlier, there aren't many Deron Paynes.
Yeah, and I don't know that he would really fill the role, but I tell you, a young guy to watch out for Darian Mathis, a freshman who was redshirted. I don't know if, Gary, if you mentioned him on that list.
We did.
Yeah, he is a guy that I think has had you know, from my understanding, had a really good camp in August and throughout the fall. So I think he's really a guy, number 93, don't forget that. I think he is a guy to keep an eye on for Darian Mathis.
Good call, Phil. Thanks for calling in for the first time. Let's get an email from Dennis. Wants to know Alabama punter and field goal kicker coming in. Well, they signed Joseph Bulovis, Dennis, as a kicker last year. He's one of those guys we mentioned that didn't play. And they've got a punter signee, Rodney, that's one of the best in the country to come in for J.K. Scott.
Skylar DeLong. How do you like that?
Sounds like a punter, doesn't it?
Skylar DeLong. Great name. Yeah, out of South Carolina. He was some people thought he was the #1 punter in the country and was originally committed to Tennessee, flipped to Alabama. So, yeah, he'll be the guy probably.
Thanks for the calls and the emails. We'll be back after this.
This is probably one of the largest returning classes that we've ever had in terms of numbers. We could start 3 seniors on the infield, which I don't think has ever happened.
Alabama softball beginning practice last week in the Hank Crisp Indoor Facility. Bama coming off a 47-17 record, capped off by a 2-1 loss to Florida in the best-of-3 Super Regional. Alabama almost got back to the College World Series last year. They'll open the season February 8 against South Alabama. Our beautiful shirts, as always, provided by the Locker Room in downtown Tuscaloosa, home of the original Elephant Wear. Get by and see them in person or shop online. You'll be glad you did. Also, scheduled to go to Buddy's Rib and Steak tonight because of the weather. We'll push that back until next week. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Good night, everybody.